It's challenging to root for Serena and Dan as a couple on Gossip Girl since there was so much toxicity between them. The fact that Dan started an entire online blog to spread rumors about Serena for so many years is the biggest, most obvious reason why they definitely shouldn't have ended up getting married in the finale. But there were also tons of other problematic issues between them along the way that proved they weren't a good match. Here's our breakdown of 5 other guys Serena could have happily married and 5 other girls Dan could have happily married. Dan could have married Vanessa Abrams. It's a given that Vanessa could have and should have been endgame for Dan. They were friends who had crushes on each other way before Serena entered the picture. Viewers simply never got to see the foundation between Dan and Vanessa since they connected before the show began. Dan decided he would never forgive Vanessa after finding out she helped Juliet and Jenny sabotage Serena. But what if Vanessa had never agreed to be part of that revenge plot? Or what if she did, but Dan had been willing to forgive her? There's a chance Dan and Vanessa could have had an awesome love story. They could always relate when it came to living life in Brooklyn, which is something Serena never understood. Serena could have married Carter Basin. While it's true that Carter proved himself to be a sleazy guy on more than one occasion on Gossip Girl, he was a true gentleman when he was dating Serena. The entire time he was hooking up with Blair, in comparison, he was a sleazeball who was only there to have sex. With Serena, he actually took the relationship seriously. He was ready to show his mature side. He was ready for commitment. Unfortunately for Carter, his past caught up to him and he wasn't able to stay with Serena since he had to pay up on a debt he owed to the Buckley family. Still, Serena and Carter were a great match while they were together, especially when you think about the fact that he helped her track down her father. Dan could have married Olivia Burke. Another great option for Dan would have been Olivia. Plenty of Gossip Girl fans are convinced that Olivia was the best girlfriend Dan pulled during his entire time on the show. That's because Olivia was way out of his league, but she was still willing to date him anyway. Olivia was a stunning actress who had a lot going for her. She really wanted to experience a normal life as a college student, which is why she befriended Vanessa and why she started dating Dan. If Dan was able to get it together and stop being so insecure, he easily could have ended up with Olivia as his wife by the end of the show. Serena could have married Nate Archibald. Can you picture Serena and Nate ending up together? Because we sure can. Serena is the one who swiped Nate's V card on the hotel bar during the Shepherd wedding, and when they later started dating each other officially after high school, it was a full circle moment. Nate was so head over heels in love with Serena that he only had eyes for her. Even when Jenny tried to seduce Nate from Serena, Nate was completely uninterested. He literally only wanted to be with Serena. The reason their relationship fell apart is because Serena was busy tracking down her father with Carter's help, and she left Nate in the dark about all the details. If Serena had been more forthright with details about her search for her dad, there's a huge chance she would have been able to end up with Nate. They would have been a great match as husband and wife. Dan could have married Blair Waldorf. There's a reason so many Gossip Girl fans still love the idea of seeing Dan and Blair together. It seemed that Dan actually had genuine feelings for Blair because he knew who she was authentically as a human being. With Serena, he saw a caricature of his dream girl up on a pedestal without any realness. His feelings for Blair were undeniably legitimate, which is why there are so many arguments rooting for Dan and Blair as a couple. Of course, we all know Dan and Blair were never going to end up together, but Dan certainly gave it his all fighting for that to become his reality. They very well could have been an ideal pairing. Serena could have married Colin Forester. The drama surrounding Serena and Colin came to an end right about the time they decided to call it quits on their relationship. That's what leads us to believe that they actually could have made it work if they'd been willing to stick it out a little longer. He was concerned about his job as her professor while she was his student. He wanted her to drop out of his class. On the other hand, Serena wanted him to quit teaching so they could date each other without the fear of getting caught or exposed. In the end, he decided he no longer wanted to be a professor, but they also decided to amicably split up. Since he was no longer employed as a professor, they very easily could have pursued a relationship that wouldn't have been breaking any rules. Dan could have married Willa Weinstein. Many members of the Gossip Girl fandom think of Willa as one of the more annoying romantic connections Dan had on the show, but she actually had his best intentions in mind. She certainly overstepped by making calls on his behalf that manipulated his future as a writer, but she did it because she hoped it would yield positive results for Dan in the publication world. Since Dan always took being a writer so seriously, it's pretty obvious that he could have ended up married to Willa since she was someone who spoke the same language with him about the importance of authorship. Serena could have married Max Harding. Serena didn't give Max enough of an opportunity to sweep her off her feet, but he was definitely on track to making that happen. Max only showed up in New York City to try and track down Ivy Dickens. But as soon as he met Serena, he was immediately attracted to her. Max knew he wanted to be with Serena, but Ivy did her best to keep them apart. If Ivy wasn't in the picture, and if Serena had been more open to pursuing things with Max, he very well could have been the right guy for her to end up with. Dan could have married Georgina Sparks. Crazy understands crazy, right? That's why Dan and Georgina would have been a perfect match in the end. Georgina was incredibly psychotic when it came to her manipulation tactics. She was a schemer like Blair, and she was also highly vindictive and manipulative in her approach to life. Dan, on the other hand, masqueraded as Gossip Girl for years, which proves that he was more similar to Georgina than anyone might have guessed. All that being said, Dan and Georgina dated each other and it didn't work out, but maybe it should have. Serena could have married Aaron Rose. Another guy that could have possibly been a soulmate connection for Serena was Aaron Rose. It was difficult for him to commit to her at the beginning of their relationship since he was so accustomed to dating multiple girls at any given time. Serena was the girl who made him feel comfortable in monogamy. She made him feel good about settling down in a very mature way. He even bought her tickets to Buenos Aires for the holidays while they were dating. Aaron became a better man for Serena, which is why we believe he could have been a great husband to her. What do you think of all these girls and guys Dan and Serena could have married instead of each other? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below.